A busy week on Capitol Hill as House Republicans expect to vote Tuesday on a new spending bill that would keep the federal government open through September 30th.
Without action from Congress, the government will shut down Friday, and Democrats seem dead set on forcing that to happen.
Here with a preview on what we can expect, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Great to see you this morning, Karoline. Thank you for joining us. So, as you know by now, trying to get Congress to do anything is a little bit like herding cats. But you guys feel pretty comfortable about where you are right now.
Yes, we do. And this week, government funding will run out, and House Republicans have negotiated and led a clean continuing resolution, which President Trump fully supports. And he is counting on Republicans on Capitol Hill to work together to unite to get this clean CR passed. On November 5th, the American people gave Republicans and President Trump a historic, overwhelming mandate to govern. And it would be a gift to the Democrats to allow them to shut down the government and therefore shut down the momentum that President Trump and Republicans have built over the last 7 weeks. So this clean CR, we need it to pass. It effectively curbs spending, freezes spending, while allowing the government to continue to function, allowing ICE agents and Border Patrol to continue their mass deportation effort, allows President Trump's cabinet to continue to identify waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal bureaucracy. So the president supports the CR, and we're hopeful and expect Republicans to get on board so we can pass it and continue moving forward implementing President Trump's agenda.
Caroline, I want to ask you about this one as well. Vice President Vance said that he and his 3-year-old daughter were followed and heckled by pro-Ukrainian protesters. Such an ugly scene. What's your reaction to what he dealt with there?
It was very sad to watch those videos and to hear directly from our vice president about this situation, especially since he was with his daughter on a walk, clearly trying to enjoy private family time. But unfortunately, this is the world and the country that we live in. But I think it's very telling that these protesters were out there hooting and hollering about Ukraine. This is who the Democrat Party has become. It's the party of foreign countries and putting America last. And I applaud the vice president. He is a man of integrity and a family man for engaging with these protesters and trying to explain to them he and President Trump's common sense point of view on this issue. But it was definitely sad to see.
Well, you know, Caroline, you and I have had the opportunity to both spend a lot of time around President Trump and Elon Musk. There's a lot of palace intrigue about what's happening in that relationship, what Elon's relationship is like with, the rest of these government officials. Once and for all, can we dispel the rumors that there is some ongoing feud between Elon Musk, President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio? What do you say about that?
I can confirm there is no such feud. In fact, I was at Mar-a-Lago last night with President Trump, Elon Musk, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and all was well. The president convened a meeting last week with members of his cabinet and with Elon to talk about this historic effort that everybody is on board with to identify the waste, fraud, and abuse across our federal government. And the meeting was highly productive. It was an open dialogue and discussion, which is exactly what the president's team should be doing, engaging with one another to implement the president's goals. And so everybody is on board with President Trump's mission and Doge's mission to identify this waste and fraud, to be good stewards of the American taxpayers' money. And both Elon and Marco are doing an incredible job in their respective roles. And that's true of everybody in President Trump's cabinet. He has really put together an extraordinary team. And I think it's pitiful that the mainstream media is working overtime to try to divide President Trump from Elon and from other members of his cabinet, but their attempts are failing. Everybody is working as one team towards one goal, and it's to make America great again.
So obviously, you all have made some pretty tremendous strides in exposing a lot of incredible waste, fraud, and abuse that I think anybody who's been paying attention knows existed, but you all have done a really fantastic job of really ferreting all of that out. But these changes and the cuts to this stuff, it's going to be a whole lot better if you get Congress on board, Republicans in Congress, to go along with it. What kind of headway has the White House made in terms of getting Congress to go along with making a lot of this stuff more permanent so that when the Trump administration is over, we still have some of these measures in place to prevent this nonsense.
Yeah, well, I've seen many Republicans from the Hill at the White House, and they are extraordinarily excited about the waste and the fraud that the Trump administration is identifying across the board at every federal agency. I saw Secretary Brooke Rollins working on the weekend yesterday posting about some of the millions of dollars of contracts that she found at the Department of Agriculture focused on what? Transgender studies. Why is the Department of Agriculture funding transgender studies to the tune of millions of dollars? So everybody is on board with identifying this, and I know it's good news for Capitol Hill, especially for conservatives who, of course, want to cut runaway spending. That's how we're going to get the inflation nightmare driven by Joe Biden's economic policies under control. And as President Trump has said, he's committed to hopefully passing a balanced budget. And so to the fiscal conservative hawks, I think it's music to their ears, and it should be music to the ears of everybody, because we have to get our fiscal house in order, and that's exactly what this administration is focusing on doing.
I have to ask you real quick, have you had a single day off?
I haven't had a day off in probably a year since we been on the campaign
You took
trail.
one day off to give
okay.
birth, and then you were back at
we
it
all
the next
take
day.
notes from President Trump. And
Yeah,
Caroline,
yeah,
you
that's
and I
right.
both know he does not take any days off, so nobody takes any days off.
Well, thank you for taking the
Still
time
That's right.
and to join us this morning.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Caroline.
Good to see you.